What up, y'all? Mrs. Z Nation, aka Salvatore Jones Giraffa. Welcome to another episode of Deck Building Wednesday. Today, we're going to be looking at, in my personal opinion, the best clan in the game, Moi Mega Colony. Let's go. But seriously, um, I'm very happy at this. I'm not even gonna lie on that. I was waiting for Giraffa to come back into like the V series for like a very long time. We ended V series and I was like, where's Giraffa? Like seriously, where's Giraffa? I'm waiting for my boy to make his return. Not only did Giraffa make his return, he is literally on the front cover of Volume 1. When I saw that he was on the front cover of Volume 1 and this dude's getting sleeves, I was like, yo, maybe we will finally get good Mega Colony support. Maybe finally Bushiroad will stop fucking us over. And you know what? I was technically right. We did get very good support. We did get something that Bushiroad won't completely fuck us over with. And I'm gonna be real with you, even though Mega Colony might not be the best deck in the game, I do heavily feel that Giraffa is a very good Dark Horse contender. As in, it's a very good sweeper clan. I'm gonna be real with you on that. It's a sweeper clan that's going to be like, oh well, nobody's expecting Mega Colony to show up in these tournaments. They do, and they actually do very well. I also feel like, in my personal opinion, now this may be 100% wrong because I don't know how Grand Blue decks work, but out of all the clans that uses it, the Stoichia support, I feel like that Mega Colony uses it the best, in my personal opinion. Because like overall, like the way Bushiroad did Mega Colonies is, instead of feeling more like a strictly anti-meta clan, it feels more like a toolbox clan. It's all like, yes, it was dumb that every time Mega Colony got support, they got something new, and they didn't really do so much as to upgrade what Mega Colony currently had. And basically fill in the gaps of something that Mega Colony definitely needed. Like, look at, for a prime example, Great Nature. When you look at both the Isabel and the Big Billy support, for a prime example, if you're just going by set 11 alone, you can definitely tell that there was a lot of things missing. You can tell like they had the strategies there, but there was some major piece missing. And then when you seen like they came out with the promo, for a prime example, it was like the Lemieux promo. You can definitely tell that was Isabel's missing piece. That was strictly Isabel's missing piece. But then when you look at the Chatnor support, where you have Chatnor, Compass Lion, and Tape Your Cap, for a prime example, you can obviously tell that those three cards were specifically made to support Isabel and Big Belly. And they work very well, and they help out both of the decks a lot, which is why I consider it the missing piece of set 11, in my personal opinion. But with these Mega Colony pieces, like all three of the Giraffas, Pupa, Elite, and Evil Armor, and whatnot, I feel like if you weren't taking Evil Armor into consideration, Pupa and Elite are technically pieces that Mega Colony definitely needed. So not just in the Giraffa build, but also in every other one, whether it's Gridora, whether it's Gun and Colio. I would even dare to say V Premium machinings, in a way, kind of sort of need a couple of the pieces and whatnot, which is understandable. And now that we're getting now that we're getting martial arts mutant Master Beetle, like now that we're getting him and he has like the similar ability, he has like a similar description in his ability of what Giraffa has. If his ability is similar to Giraffa, we might actually have Mega Colony in the most perfect standing that we ever had. Especially if the other two support cards, which is Brilliant Blister and the other machining card, well, I don't know why I can't think of his name at the moment, but if both of those cards seem to be very good, and including Master Beetle, we might actually have the perfect Mega Colony build. I'll be real with you on that. I've seen like a lot of other people do Giraffa with like Gridora, which I'm gonna be real with you. Originally, I didn't think it would happen, but it actually did. We've also seen some people use the Giraffa support with Magnolia, and it works pretty well as well. So honestly, I'm very hyped for this particular support. But with all that being said, let's just get this started because I'm down to just constantly do this list. All right, now, so obviously for starting Vanguard, we're using Lava Giraffa. So basically, if Pupa no, look, if Pupa rides on Larva, basically you're able to get Elite from the deck to your hand, which is actually pretty good. So yeah, it's all like we may not get an order card overall, but we'll still get like something out of it. We'll get a near perfect ride where we will hardly ever miss. I would have to say, if you were to play the Giraffa engine in premium format, out of 50 games, you might miss it like maybe 4 times out of 50. Like that's how accurate this shit is, which I love it. But anyway, on to heal triggers. We have like one regular heal, and then we have 3 of the heal guardians, because I do feel like that the heal guardians are very important. As for the over trigger, we're using the Cray Elemental one. Now here's the thing, you could use the Stoachia one, but the reason why I'm choosing the original over trigger specifically is because of Antlion. Seeing that Antlion has the ability to prevent you from your opponent from using Sentinels from hand, more likely you'll just get a guaranteed win. And he has a built-in crit. It's definitely something that I would love to see work, which it most definitely will. So that's the reason why we're using that one instead of the Stoachia one. Despite the Stoachia one being good too though, but still, I would rather just use this one. That way I can target both of my rear guards for it, which is actually understandable. Now of course, obviously you can't stop something like, let's say, will be a prime example. Unless if you're actually on Gridora, you can't necessarily stop like Denial Griffin or anything else like that, but you're able to stop mostly everything else. Next up, we just have the rest of them is just, you know, crit trigger, crit trigger, crit trigger. So we got like 4 Sentinel crits, we have 4 of the Stride Fodder crits, and we have 3 of the Vanguard crits. So yeah, we're going full aggro in this piece. We're going full aggro on this piece. Because I feel like that we have decent enough draw power to actually withhold everything. So honestly, it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it. Alright, next up for our grade 1s. We have Tyrus. I think that's how you say his name. I might be saying his name wrong. Trigo. Why did I think of Tyrus? Trigo. We have Trigo at 2. Basically, this card is a Giraffa support card that came out a long time ago. Like if I remember correctly, this is one of the fighters collection pieces. So basically, during your opponent's draw phase, if your opponent has a card that is at rest, it doesn't matter if it's Vanguard, Rear Guard, or anything. As long as they have at a minimum of one rested card, you're able to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and choose a card with Giraffa in its card name and add it to hand and shuffle your deck. This is actually pretty good, which is the reason why we're running 2 Giraffa pieces. We shouldn't, but it's there just to keep consistent with this deck. Next up we have Brony Jerk. Now you're kind of wondering why we're running Brony Jerk. So seeing that elite Giraffa has the ability to force your opponent to discard, why not give your opponent more pieces that they can discard? Brony Jerk when it boosts as a unit, okay, my bad. When he boosts a unit, basically you discard a card, your opponent discards a card. You discard a card and your opponent is forced to discard a card. On place, you Soul Blast 1. Your opponent mills the top card of your deck. If it's not a trigger unit, you Soul Charge 1. But regardless, he should be able to get 6k, which is actually pretty good as well. Then we have High Class Moth at 3, because I think 4 is too much and I think 4 is too cloggy. But we have him at 3, and High Class Moth's ability is basically rest, put a normal unit from your drop zone into the bottom of the deck, choose one of your opponent units, and it stuns it. They can't intercept with it at all, and you get to countercharge 1, which is actually pretty good. And as long as he's in the deck, he counts as a grade 3, and he also counts as a grade 3 when he's in Soul. This card, in my personal opinion, was the best card to come out in Clan Selection, because this fixes so many things that was wrong with Mega Colony that it makes it worth it at the end of the day. Then we're running 4 Pupas, which Pupa is actually a pretty interesting card. So when he's placed on the Vanguard circle, you discard a card with any grade and you search your deck for a Giraffa card with the exact same grade. So not only you're able to search out for Elite after riding him on top of Larva, but if you wanted to, you can discard any other grade and search out for another Giraffa card, which is actually pretty interesting. So for a prime example, we already know that Sand Giraffa is just going to be he's just a fodder piece. He's a fodder piece specifically for Pupa, and he's also a fodder piece for Trigold, just so you can hit that Giraffa card sooner, which is the reason why he's being ran in the deck at all, to be honest. But if you had Sand Giraffa in your hand, for a prime example, you can ditch him and get an Evil Armor General Giraffa, where he definitely belongs. So when you get to grade 3, you can just ride him on the Vanguard circle, thus never breaking your ride chain whatsoever, which is actually amazing in my personal opinion. He also has a rear guard ability where when you place him on rear guard circle, you Soul Blast for each empty rear guard circle that your opponent has in the same column, and you draw a card. So basically, if your opponent has a full column with nothing but units, you basically just on place draw a card. You don't have to Soul Blast at all or anything else like that. Or you can actually be clever, and if your opponent does have an empty column, you can basically just put him at the behind your Vanguard circle, and at most use Soul Blast 1. let me give out a real claimer real quick. Do not, and I repeat, do not Soul Blast 2 for this effect. If you have to call them because you need a column and your opponent doesn't have any rear guards on their column, do not pay the Soul Blast 2. You want to make that effect as free as possible. As free as possible. If you can't make it free, don't do it at all. I'm going to just be real with you on that. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But anyway, on to the grade 2s. We got some pretty interesting ones here. Alright, so for Elite, you're kind of wondering why we're running 3 of the new Elite Giraffas and 1 of the older Elite Giraffas. Well, this is because the older Elite Giraffa is the one that you want to search out when you use Pupa's ability to search out for Elite. The reason being is because on the Vanguard circle, as long as you have Pupa in your soul, he becomes a 10k beat stick. Not to mention that if the attack hits a Vanguard is successful, he is able to choose one of your opponent's rear guards and it gets stunned. Which means if you also have Trigo, for a prime example, you're able to actually search the top 5 cards of your deck for a Giraffa. Now here's the thing, you also got to remember that this is an interesting bait card at the same time. Because let's be real, if your opponent decided to go aggro against you and they have rear guards, all you have to do is pull out this card and most guarantee that they're probably going to block it. But that's okay. That's one less card in their hand, and that's one less damage that they can use for counterblasting, which is actually pretty good. But overall, you mainly want him mainly because he is a 10k beat stick. That's his main reason. Other than that, the newer version is actually pretty good. On Vanguard rear guard, he's able to when he attacks, he counterblast 1, and if your opponent has 1 or less rear guard that's standing, or unit that's standing in general, you get to draw a card. But he also gains 5k for each rested unit that your opponent has on the rear guard circles, which is actually pretty good as well. So even if they don't, for a prime example, have any rear guards, Counterblast 1 to draw a card is actually just good enough. Like, let's be real on that. There's nothing wrong with free draws, even though it is a Counterblast 1. Alright. Next up, we're running Greg Giraffa, or Grud Giraffa. I think that's how you say it. Basically, he's going to be the major reason why we hardly miss our ride chain. You don't care about his first effect, where you force rest your opponent's rear guards. That effect isn't really important. It's basically the hand effect. So if you have Larva, you can discard him and ride a what's his face? Ride a I don't know why I'm messing up on here. But anyway, you can ride a Pupa from your deck and place it on the Vanguard circle. Thus, you not really missing out on your ride effect, which is actually pretty good. So that's basically the reason why he's in there. Next up, you have a somewhat controversial choice, and this, in my personal opinion, is only in there because of 2 reasons. One, I'm gonna be real with you, I really like the mill mechanic, so this is more of a personal tech. If you wanted to, you can pretty much replace this with another Cyclomatooth if you want to. But for me, this is just a personal tech. Basically, you counterblast 1, soul blast 1 when he attacks a Vanguard. He gets 10k and he mills the top card of your opponent's deck. If it isn't a level 0, then you get to draw a card, which is actually pretty good. So that's, like I said, he's only in there for that particular reason. Next up, Sorry, dumbass motorcycles. Next up, Megalar Lancer. This boy has been coming back and he's been carrying the Mega Colony Grade 2 game on his back since Venom Stinger. Basically, when he attacks a Vanguard, you choose one of your rear guards, you can put it in the soul, and for each resting unit that your opponent has, he gains plus 2k, and your opponent cannot intercept. Which basically all you're really using this card for is to put stuff into the soul at the end of the day. Now to finish the main deck, we got our main grade 3s, which is Evil Armor General Giraffa. Oh my god, man. I cannot wait to talk about this spicy tech. Oh my god, man. I cannot wait. But anyway, we're definitely running him at 4. Evil Armor General Giraffa has the ability to, when he attacks, he counterblast 1. And you counterblast 1, and you force your opponent to call 2 cards from their hand onto the rearguard circles, and they cannot stand, so they're basically instantly stunned. And if your opponent's Vanguard is at grade 3, if your opponent's Vanguard is at grade 3 and you have 2 cards, at least 2 minimal cards with different names of Giraffa in your soul, you're able to get a plus critical. So his base critical becomes 2, which is actually pretty good, and it definitely puts on a lot of pressure. The only bad thing is you have to wait for your opponent to be at grade 3 in order to use his ability. But because of this, this will make it to where you don't always have to stride, which is actually pretty good. Just the fact that you're able to force your opponent to call units from the rearguard circles, just the fact that you're able to do that is pretty good enough. You already get the pressure. It's basically like mini Rene when you really think about it. So not only you're hitting them with an extra critical, you're also forcing your opponent to discard 2 cards. But wait! There's more! Remember, Brony Jerk also has the ability to, when he boosts this, you discard a card yourself, and you force your opponent to discard a card as well. So not only they have to force call 2 units from their hand, they also have to discard a card at the same time. If that's not pressuring, I don't know what is. At the end of the day. Then of course he gets 5k for each card with Giraffa and with different names in the soul. That also is another thing. So he also becomes a 22k beat stick before triggers and before getting boosted at all. So that's actually pretty good as well. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with the new Giraffa that I'm very excited to actually use, not only in premium format, but also regular premium as well. Next up, we have basically our finisher, our original finisher, which is Antlion. When he attacks, you discard 2 cards, you Soul Blast a grade 3. This includes High Class Moth Wink Wink. Basically, he gets 10k plus 1 critical, and your opponent cannot call Sentinels from their hand to the Guardian Circle, which is actually pretty good. This is the reason why we are running the over trigger. We're running the original over trigger. Basically, because that means he will become 1 million. And he becomes 1 million with a built-in critical. Your opponent cannot use any Sentinels. If this happens during the turn where you're on the Gridora turn, where they can't even call G Guardians, basically is nearly GG. Like at the end of the day, it's technically GG. So there's that. But then we also run in one Cyclomatooth. Cyclomatooth is there specifically if you ride into him first. So here's the game plan. Cyclomatooth has the ability to, if something rides on top of him on the Vanguard circle, your opponent is forced to discard a card, and whatever grade that card is, it gets plus 5k for each of that card's grade until the end of the turn. Your Vanguard does. The thing is, to overall finish this game, you ride Giraffa on top of Cyclomatooth. Cyclomatooth's card will activate and force your opponent to discard a card. You attack with you put Brony Jerk in the back of Giraffa. You attack with Brony Jerk boosted. Use Brony Jerk's ability first to discard a card, forcing your opponent to discard a card. Then you have then you use Giraffa's ability that forces your opponent to call 2 cards in their hand, and then you just go to work at the end of the day. At the same time, even if you don't get this ability activated, you can still use Cyclomatooth on the rearguard circle, as he is a very good rearguard circle ability in general. So when you do this strategy overall, you're forcing your opponent to discard 1 card from Cyclomatooth. You're forcing your opponent to discard 1 card with Brony Jerk, and they have to lose 2 cards from Giraffa to put onto the field. So overall, even though this is a long and extensive strategy in a way, it's a very good finisher because it forces your opponent to discard 4 cards from their hand. And let's be real, seeing that this will be late game when your opponent is more likely at 4 or 5 damage, this will just put even more pressure onto your opponent, which is actually understandable. So yeah, overall, this is actually a pretty decent strategy. And then of course, like I said, Sand Giraffa, you don't even have to worry about really using Sand Giraffa. I mean, he does have like an ability where he basically, you can counterblast one if he hits the Vanguard, and it stuns one of your units though. But if your opponent gets rid of that unit on their next turn, then they have to retire another unit on their field. But outside of that, you don't necessarily really have to use him. Like I said, he's just there for fodder. He's there for stride fodder. He's there for pupa fodder. He's there for trigo fodder. He's just an overall fodder card in general. So yeah, that's it for the main deck. Seeing that this is like close to 30 minutes now, let's quickly go over like the extra deck. Well, first off, we have, in my personal opinion, one of the worst strides ever made. We have Parpelio. Parpelio, honestly, is just going to be flip fodder. You don't have to really give a shit about this card. But if you really wanted to go for the memes, Parpello has this ability where when she attacks, you counterblast 1. Your opponent chooses 3 face down cards from his or her G zone, turns them face up, and then you get plus 15k to your whole front row for each unit that was not a G Guardian. Yeah, if it was just any unit, it's like if it was just for any unit and you just get straight up 45k, this would have been mad good. However, this card is trash. When even some of the elite Vanguard players don't know how to use this card or don't know any strategy with it, you basically know how bad this card really is. And it was also dubbed as the worst card of Premium Collection 2020. That's how bad it is. But anyway, you want to get to your main Queen Gridora. Basically, you counterblast 1, turn a G card face up on your G zone. And then until the end of your opponent's turn, every single card, Vanguard and Rearguard on their field are rested. They cannot call cards outside of hand. And when she attacks, you Soul Blast one card and call a grade 3 from your deck to the field when it gets plus 10k to the end of the turn, which is actually pretty good. So basically, your opponent cannot call G Guardians. They can't call stuff from the drop zone. They can't call stuff from the damage zone. They can't call stuff from the deck. They can't call stuff from the soul. They can't call stuff from the bind zone. They can only call stuff from the hand. This card is really powerful, and I'm slightly scared because for some reason I have a feeling that if Mega Colony goes as far as it does, this card might actually get a hit, and that will be bad news. Next up is the original holder of Mega Colony. We're running 3 Overwhelms. Overwhelm has the ability that depends on the opponent's field state. If your opponent has one or less cards rear guards on the field, she gets plus 10k, plus 1 critical, and she's have the ability to the quad drive instead of triple drive. However, if they have more units, you basically get to draw a card. So you draw a card for each rested rear guard that your opponent has, and they're not in the danger zone if they have a minimum of 2 units rested. So basically, overall, you're supposed to be getting more cards into your hand. This is supposed to be your overall first strat at times, depending on what clan you're going against. So overall, it's a pretty good card. Still usable today, which is the reason why you don't really journey much outside of just overwhelming or Dora, because you gotta stay in the comfort zone. Zoa is Zoa, you already know. Give a unit X amount of power, and if it hits the opponent, if that particular unit hits the opponent, they instantly lose. The attack of a Vanguard actually hits, they lose. The original way to stop this is basically your opponent just using a G Guardian. However, I mean not a G Guardian, but a Sentinel. However, because we do have Antline that prevents your opponent from using Sentinels, it has a 99.9% chance of hitting your opponent. That extra 1% is specifically for Gold Paladins, because you already know Gold Paladins have Slimy Flare, and Slimy Flare has a 1 in 50 chance of actually hitting a PG within that whole thing. So that's the reason why I said 99.9% chance of it actually hitting. Then you have our GB8. I still believe that our GB8 is still pretty valuable. On place, all your opponent's auto skills are deactivated. They can't intercept, and all of your units, Vanguard included, gets 5k for each rested rear guard on your opponent's field. If you're going against an XL clan, XL clans are just basically just going to lose. Like, let's be real on that. But that's just me. Then last but not least, for like the strides, we have Optorandus, where you counterblast 2, discard a card, and your opponent can't call anything to their rearguard circles for the rest of the turn. I mean, until the end of their turn. So, that was originally a decent card back in the day. It's still pretty relevant today, so that's actually good too. However, just keep in mind that like the only card that has diplomatic immunity to all this is Messiah, as when they call the card is locked. So they can still get around that. But let's be real, you're hardly going to go against Messiah anyway. Everything else are just G Guardians. Morphesian is pretty much your most valuable one, as if your opponent has 2 or less standing rear guards, she is able to get a 10k shield, which is actually pretty good. Then you have Relish Lady, which is kind of sort of weird. She's the Flipper G Guardian one, and when your opponent's Vanguard attacks, it sucks because your opponent's Vanguard have to attack in order to activate it. They choose to rest 2 rear guards. If they can't rest 2 rear guards, you draw a card, countercharge, soul charge. Then of course you have the Cray Elemental one that when he's placed on the Guardian Circle, you discard a card and it gets 5k shield for every 2 cards in your opponent's hand. If you're going against a deck that can generate a shit ton of hand, like let's say Bermuda Triangles or OTT or Great Nature or whatever, this is a pretty good card to combat some of their attack schemes and whatnot. Then you have Griceforth, which in my personal opinion is kind of sort of a shitty card, but it's still somewhat useful. So when the when your opponent's Vanguard attacks, yes, it's another opponent has to attack the Vanguard skill again. You counterblast one, you rest all of your opponent's rear guards in the back row, and you get 5k shield for every 2 rested units on your opponent's field. Again, I don't understand why this can only activate when your opponent's Vanguard attacks, but it's Bushy Road. They don't know what the fuck they doing. Let's be real on that. But overall, this is the deck. I do want to make more Giraffa builds. I do want to do more in-depth Mega Colony builds too. So look out for those particular videos. But this is basically the build I'm going to be using for a bit. But overall, thank you everybody for joining today in my Vanguard long ass deck profile that I'm doing and whatnot. But overall, thank you everybody for joining. I don't know what I'm gonna do for the next video. I'm still trying to figure out what I need to do for the podcast, and then at the same time what I need to do for the next deck building thing. But for now, my name is Mrs. Z Nation, aka Savage Armor Jones Giraffa, signing out.